Hello! How are we all doing? I'm waiting for some indication that I'm actually live. So fingers crossed. We've got to get on with it today. There is so much to cover. So hopefully I'm live. I will say hello to the ones I can see in the chat. Oh, excellent. I can see Jamie and Renee. What's that one there? Long name. Shepherd Sternhalf. Oh, I like that. Hello, Mark. Hello, SFN. Who else have we got? Annie, hello. So we're all present and correct. Excellent. Let's get on with it because, as I say, master pages, there is a lot to cover. So first things first, we are broadcasting in HD. Make sure you are watching in HD. There is a cog in the lower right-hand corner from which you can choose your quality, and you need to choose the best quality that's there. While you're down there, there's the like button, and we do like the like button. Just saying. Right, if you don't know me, my name is Elaine Giles. I'm a long-time Affinity user since the original Affinity Designer was released in beta, and I've used the Affinity apps every day since then. Everything that we look at today is as relevant for the Mac as it is Windows. Still no sign of the iPad app, but I'm sure it's on its way. Now, would everything that we're doing be relevant for the iPad? Possibly. It would definitely be supported on the iPad when it finally arrives. News this week. Big news for the channel. A milestone. 49,000 subscribers. So thank you, each and every one of you who have subscribed. Don't forget to tell your friends. We need to get to that 50,000, don't we? It's a nice round number. Right, as I say, today is jam-packed. So much so, couldn't even fit it all on the agenda slide. I did discuss it with Mike and I said, well, I could take it over 2 or 3 slides, but probably best not to. So I've truncated it into this, but in terms of actual detail, there's going to be plenty of it, which means you may have questions. If you've got questions, put your questions in the chat as we go. We will collect them ready for the Q&A at the end of the session. And if you can remember, please put a Q at the beginning. It just makes it a little easier for Mike to find those questions, and also give us as much context as possible because we have a delay on YouTube and that makes it quite difficult to work out what you're referring to if there isn't enough context. So just give us enough information. And of course, you'll be busy in the chat, won't you? We love to read the chat, but please keep it friendly in there. We don't want any scraps and having to deal with it, do we, Mike? Mike says no. You'll hear Mike later, but at the moment his mic's turned off. Okay, so mastering master pages in Affinity by Canva. First of all, what are master pages? Because if you don't know this, the rest is not going to make any sense, is it? Well, we have 2 distinct types of pages, broadly speaking, without getting into more detail than we need to. We have content pages, where your content lives, and we have master pages. Now, a master page is a non-printing page in terms of it isn't included in the number of pages that are output, but its content is shown on any content page that it is applied to. So you can use your master page as a template page for 1 or more pages in your document. Your content pages are output. Your master pages are not counted as those separate pages. So if in a file with 10 content pages and 4 master pages, when you produce your content, it will output the 10 content pages and not count the 4 master pages. But as I say, the content of those master pages will be included on any pages to which they are applied. And a content page, that's where your content lives. So if you're putting together a cookery book, it's where the recipes are, it's where the table of contents is, it's where the ingredient index is. Now, first encounter with this used to be the File New Dialog Box, and in Affinity Publisher, it was very much in your face. It's a little bit more hidden now, but it is still there. So the first encounter with master pages could well be the new File Dialog Box, which we'll have a look at right now, which I did have on the screen, but, for reasons best known to itself, it's hidden it. Oh, okay, you really have hidden it, haven't you? Where have you gone? Right. So this is the new File Dialog. It doesn't matter what you select in here in terms of size, the settings on the right-hand side tend to be the same. Now, when I opened this dialog, you'll notice I was in the layout view. It doesn't actually make a difference. So what we're concentrating on for our first encounter with master pages is the right-hand side of this dialog box. Now, if you're moving from publisher, it used to be easier because things were just there. Now they're a little bit hidden. What we see, I'm scrolling with my mouse wheel, nothing's happening because that is all we can see. So in here, you would choose your size and your DPI and all the rest of it. But if you want to add a master page at this stage, you need to turn on multi-page for the option to even be available now. So if I slide that across, you can see we now have default options of facing pages, arrange horizontally, start on the right, number of pages, and then we have the option to create a default master. And what it's referring to is a default master page. Be aware though, even if you choose to do that by sliding that, it creates only one master page and it's blank. It's totally blank. That is all you can do from here. But let me show you the difference. First of all, if I just create a document, we can see that in the Pages panel, we have master pages at the top and there are none. So that would be the default behavior. But if we go back in and we enable the multi-page, even if we leave it set to one page, we can choose to have a default master page. When you do that and you create, you end up with this master up here. Just to point out that because, this is actually very interesting the way it works, because you have to choose multi-pages and because I chose facing pages, which was the default, the master is split into two, ready for a spread. So that is how you would first encounter this in that dialog box. So let's get rid of that. And before we go any further, we have a potential gotcha. So I've had questions about this, and when I explain, people don't like it. It wasn't my choice. This is just how it works. And it is a potential gotcha if you've not really made your mind up. You know, you're at that stage, you're just feeling creative. So you create a file and you start working with it, and before you know it, you're really pleased with it, and that's going to be a file that you then output for something. Now, your issues with that are, have you started the document correctly? And this is what this potential gotcha is. So let's go back and have another look. Right, so I'm in here. Let's say that I don't need at this stage multi-page because all I'm doing is throwing some ideas down. That's what I'll do. So I go into it and I create the document. Right, we can see in here that I happen to be in the layout view. And in the layout studio, I've got one page, no master pages. Right, so I start working on this, and let's say I'm designing something. And so I'll throw my signature on it, right? And I start working. Is this a page? Well, of course it's a page. It says it's a page. It says page 1. So yes, at this stage, it's a page. But don't get married to that idea. Because if I decide that this would make a great poster and I now want to switch to vector mode and start working with it, I can do that. And this stays identical. There's nothing different about this document at this stage. But if I then decide I'd like to output this as A4, which it already is, no problem, and A5, by far the easiest way to do that is to create an artboard. So we have an artboard tool that is a throwback to Affinity Designer. So if I activate the artboard tool, you can see that it's going to insert an artboard around my content in here. So I say insert an artboard. Now the reason for using an artboard is well beyond what we're looking at today, but just let it be known that if you do have an artboard, you are able to export using the Slices Studio to different sizes, all with one click. I absolutely love artboards and I use them in many files. Right, but at this point, and you could have decided from the beginning that you'll make this and it'll be an artboard. And then you decide, yeah, it looks great as a poster. I'll use it as the cover for the program for the event. So you switch to layout view. Whoa, what happened to the pages panel? It's no longer a page. It's now an artboard. You can add multiples of these, but notice that this pages panel no longer has master pages in it, and it no longer has pages in it. It has artboards in it. And that's deliberate. So you do at the beginning of the life cycle of your file, you could do with working out whether you want multiple pages in a kind of flow the content through those pages way, or whether you want different artboards. The choice is yours, but it's tricky to switch between them. I can no longer now add what is truly a page. I can add this, but it adds an artboard. And it adds it next to it. It's not flowing like it would in a DTP file. So it's just something to be aware of. The other way with this, I created the artboard after the event. So let's lose that and start again. The other option that I've got in here is maybe I did create it. So let's create a document. We're back to having master pages at the top and pages at the bottom. I could create multiple pages if I wanted to. But let's just say that I go in and I make a master page. So it's one master page. I've not got facing pages, so it's just a single one. Now I have a master page, but that's the only change I made. There's no content, nothing. I just added a master page, which I could have done in the File New dialog, and that we would have got exactly what we're looking at now. And at this point, I decide, I need to work in the Vector Studio and I need to add some content to it. But notice I'm not adding anything at the moment. This is nothing to do with content. And I think, oh, it's going to be a poster. I'll add an artboard to it. So I come to add an artboard and everything's dimmed out. The Insert Artboard button is dimmed out and all of this is dimmed out. And it doesn't at this point tell you why. So you're thinking to yourself, well, hang on, it's activated the tool, but it won't let me insert one. But the tool's active, so I'll draw one. I'll draw next to it. And that's when you get this message that says artboards can't be added to a document with either multiple pages or master pages. So that's why it's a potential gotcha. Depends what you're doing. And I know a lot of people start out and they just start working and riffing really. Will this work? Will it not? And they get to a point where it's like, oh, this is amazing. This is going to be my document. And you could at that stage have a problem because you need an artboard or you need multiple pages, depending on how you've actually done it. So that's just something to be aware of. If I go back to the layout view, I can carry on working in here. I just can't mix pages, master pages, and artboards in the same file. This was a whole lot clearer when Affinity Designer was a totally separate product from Affinity Publisher. But they've chosen to consolidate the apps, and now we just have to deal with little issues like this that could be very confusing, especially if you're new to this and you think, well, I can add an artboard to a new file. Why can't I add an artboard to that file? And that would be the reason why. Let me know in the chat if anybody has come up against that already. Okay, so that is just something to be aware of at this point. Right, the next place that I'm going to take you to look at is the document properties. And in document properties, you have the ability to edit your master pages. So let's go and get another file in here. Now, and I've just pressed enter, so I don't have any master pages in here at all. I will add a master page. Now, just so we know what's going on in this add master, you can in here set properties for this. So you could set margins on it, drawing scales, you can give it a name. For what I'm doing with this at this stage, it doesn't really matter. If I don't name it, it calls it Master A. Your document properties are in your document setup at the top. For that to be active, remember, you need not to have one of the other tools, because that is the context-sensitive toolbar. You also need not to have anything selected, and that will enable you to go into this dialog box. Now, you can see in here that any changes I make to this at this stage are applying to the whole document. So here is Master A, here is page 1, and any changes that I add to it will be applied to both of them at this stage. So I could go in here, for example, and we've got all the option to scroll. If I forgot to add margins, I could add it at this point. So if I just add that to it, and I'll add a 3mm bleed as well, so we're making some changes, you can see that it applies to Master A, which is where I am up here, and it should also apply to page 1. Right, is this master applied to this page? Well, I didn't do it, and I added it after. So to apply it, I would need to apply it. And at that point, if I then put some content on here, so we'll just put the word master on there, make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. That should ripple through to this page as well because the master is applied to it. Now, if you just want to make changes to the master page, so we'll get rid of that, and you want to make some changes in here, then in your document setup, instead of choosing the whole document, you would go to Selected Masters. And in here, it would have a list of all the master pages you have, and you can make changes in here. So let's say I break the link there and I make the bottom one 15, so I've got more space to put page numbers. And then OK. We can see it's made a difference here because I'm on the master page. Let's go and have a look at page 1. That has rippled through because the master is applied to page 1. So the document setup, if you make a change retrospectively, then you can make changes in here, and there's a whole range of changes that you can make. The other time that we've seen this dialog box is when we had lots of pages and we were working through certain pages and making them. We added 5 pages and then turned them into a spread, and we worked in this dialog box to do it. So we have seen it before in previous sessions, but today what we're concentrating on is either applying changes to the whole document or applying changes to selected master pages. So, for example, if you had created 10 master pages and they all had a margin of 10 and you thought, oh no, now I need to change 10 master pages, you actually don't. You can use this dialog box, and you can even be granular by choosing in here which ones you change. If you want to see that, let's go and add another master page. So there's Master B and we'll have Master C. Then go into the document setup, choose the selected masters, and in here you can choose what you want. So that's what you can do in there. Right, okay, go on to the next bit. So the next bit that we would look at is the Pages panel, because this is where all of the work with the masters happens and all of the work with your pages happens as well. So we'll go and have a look at that. So we've seen it in here. The master pages appear at the top. As I say, you can go in there and you can sort them out. Once you've done this and you've created the perfect configuration of master pages, I very nearly said template then. A template does contain master pages. And ultimately, the best thing you can do for productivity is to make a template. I will show you a completed one later. But when you've set these master pages up, you don't really need to see them because you can work with them by adding pages and applying them. So if I added in here 3 pages, and on page 2 I want to apply Master B, I can drag and drop it. We've seen that. I want to apply Master C to this one. I've got to start scrolling in here before I can see it. So actually you don't even need to see it at all. You can fold it up. And on this page that I want Master C applied to, I can go into it and I can say Apply Master, and I can choose from a drop down which master I apply to it, and then apply it. So really, once you've created your master pages, you can actually leave them alone. Just hide them, and that way you would only need to go into them when you want to make changes to them. So it just makes working with them a little less overwhelming, particularly if you're new to it. And that's what you can do in there. You can also in here do lots of other things in terms of managing the master pages. Now, as well as folding up the master pages with the disclosure triangle, you can also fold up your pages and just concentrate on your master pages. Now, what else can you do with the master pages? Well, all of the things in here, I think naming them is useful. So even if it's blank, it's worth naming it as blank. Oh, you've got to have a capital B. Right. And then the next one could be your page numbers. So in there, you could name that page numbers. Just make it very clear what is what with these, what is applied and why. So this one could have the branding on it. So we'll call it branding. Now that's all very well. They're named correctly. You know exactly what they are. But when you come back to look at your pages, you've no idea which is applied to which one. You can hover and it will say blank. You can hover here, it will say page numbers. You can hover there and it will say branding. And this one was the blank one because that was the old master A. So by hovering, you can tell which master is applied. Right, back into the master pages. If you wanted these in a different order, you can reorder them. So as I'm dragging that up here, you get lots of different icons next to your mouse pointer, which didn't used to be there. I think they added those about just over a year ago. But you can drag and drop these and it should move them. So page numbers is now number 2. We drag branding up there, that's number 2. We can drag blank down to here and that will put blank at the end. So you can rename them. Rename them, reorder them. What else can you do with them? One of the most useful things you can do in here, you can duplicate them if you want a starting point for another one. You can also in here, and this is one of the most useful things, you can choose a colour. So I've made branding red. I'll make the page numbers yellow. And the blank one will make that green, which means there's nothing on it. You've got a nice little traffic light system going on. And that makes it very clear in the master pages view that you've got a colour applied, which would be useless if it didn't come through somewhere else. It comes through somewhere else. It comes through to the pages. This is genius to let you know that if you know that the green is blank, you don't have to hover and have a look. You can glance at that and it makes it glanceable as to which master page is applied. So for instance, if you're hoping that this page looks like this page and it doesn't, it's glaringly obvious what the problem is. You might be looking at it and thinking, but the margins are the same, so where's the page number gone? Where's the branding gone? But if you look at the colour, you can instantly see they're not the same master. So if I were to go to this one and apply a master, and was it the branding one? Yes. In this drop down now, you can see that page 4 has the green one applied. You can see in this drop down which is the green one. You know you need the red one. Can't remember what it's called. Not a problem. It's in the list. Choose what you want and OK. And now you can see they're both red. So they should contain exactly the content that you require. What else can we do in here? Let's go and have a look at the master pages. I didn't duplicate one, but I will show you that it is that simple to go into here and just choose duplicate. It will make another master. The naming gets a bit dicey because if you duplicate a duplicate, you get 2, 2, which is like, really? Why didn't you make it 3? And I don't really want it to say 2. But let's say blank with a logo. Right? Just rename them, but you can duplicate them. So take one of these master pages as far as you possibly can before you then duplicate it. You'll save yourself a lot of work. Right, but you're probably concerned about putting content on these master pages. So I will with this one. I'll save that one. Well, we'll put that in there. We'll just call it untitled. Right, let's get rid of it. Okay, so we're going to look at static content. When I say static content, I'm making a distinction between static content and dynamic content, which automatically updates. Some content, it sounds like, well, there's a master page. Of course I want dynamic content. Yes and no. There are certain things that you want on every page, and it's static. So let's have a look at creating that static content first. So I will go into here, and I'm starting completely from scratch with just one page. So the static content that I'm talking about would include things like decoration, it would include logos, it would include text boxes. So on here you can see I don't actually have anything in the way of margins to work to or anything. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to give this some margins. So I've started from scratch because that might be exactly where you are. And I'm going to make that bottom one 15 because I'm going to put something on there later. Right, so I've now got margins on there. Let's check. I don't have a master page though at this point. I've got my margins on here. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is to make a master page. Notice the margins have rippled through from the single page that I have. I don't even have to reset that. And this one I could call, let's just say logo, because that's what I'm going to put on it. Right, so this is going to be my logo page. What is applied to this one at the moment? Well, I'm hovering and it's not saying anything at all. So let's make sure that that is applying to that. So when I hover now, it should say logo. There we go. Eventually, it caught up with me. Right, so what you've got to remember is when you're putting your static content on it, make sure that you're on the master page. You get a very light border around it, indicating that you are on there. And I must admit, I've always thought, oh, that doesn't matter. You know, it's obvious where I am. And PowerPoint broke a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't put this border around it, and I was lost. I could not work without it. So don't underestimate the power of this border to indicate where you are. If you're on this page, your actual content page, it's on there. If you're on your master page, it's on there. Do we've been a little bit brighter, but never mind. Right, and now you're working on the master page, you're going to put your static content. So what sort of static content do we want? Well, I'm going to say in the assets, let's add my signature to the top for branding purposes. So let's just put that up there. Then I'm going to add some page numbers later. But at this stage, I'd like to add some decoration. So I'm going to use the pen tool, come down to the bottom and click once, move across to this side and click once. And I now have a line there. We can't see it too well, but the line is there. I can increase the stroke on that so we can see it much better. So we'll have it at 1. That's a compromise, isn't it? So that decoration is going to be on every page. The brand is going to be on every page. Now, the other thing that I can put on here that makes life a little bit easier is I can actually put the text box on here. So if I want text in this area here, so we'll say about there, I will take it down to the line, but that's going to give me a problem, isn't it? So I'll leave it up there slightly. Right. So that is where I want text. Now, obviously, the branding goes on the master page. The line goes on the master page. The content, the actual text, does not go on the master page, but its holding text frame can do. When we go to our page, we can see that we now have the brand at the top, we've got the line at the bottom, and we've got a placeholder for the text in the middle. We can check all of that over here in the Layers panel. It says logo, which is the name of the master page. When we open that, we've got the 3 elements. We have the signature, we have the line at the bottom, and we have some frame text. Your background page, your master page, is indicated, the content, well, it's indicated here, where it's got the name of it, with a green stripe and an icon that means this is a master page. When you use the disclosure triangle, the content of the master page is indicated with a solid green line. Each one also has an icon indicating what it is. That's art text, that is a line, and that is text, frame text. So that is what you have there. Now, if you start adding things to this page, so let's say you wanted a different asset on it. Have we got anything? Let's put the Affinity icon on it. Let's put that up there and do that with it. Right, so we'll have that there. That is not part of the master page. You can see that here. If you wanted it to be part of the master page and you've just put it on here because you happen to be on this page, then obviously you would need to cut it from where it is and put it on the master page. By cutting it rather than re-adding it, it remembers the size. And now that will come through. But what we're looking at is content that is only on this page. So now we're on the page, you can see that that icon has got its own green stripe and it's inside the master page layer in your layers panel. Right, so content that is on only this page is outside of that green section. Other content is within it. Now, let's say up here we want to add some text. which I did have this text. Oh, crying out loud. Right, I'm on the page and I want to add some text to it. So what I'll do in here, I have got Scotland, Scotland, Scotland. Let me do that. Was it that one? I think it was, but I'm not at all sure if it was looked like that, but it'll do. Right, so what I've put here is some text in that frame. Now you can see it's marked down, not formatted great. That would be a job for me to tidy up. But I said, didn't I? I definitely said that if you put content on a page, it will appear outside of this master area. This single line in your layers panel, one single layer, that is the master content, but the text isn't. And that's because we put the frame on the master page. And now this has a dotted line on it. That is indicating to you that it's customized for this page. Now, the other way of doing that would have been if I had added a page and it didn't have a master. So I clear the masters off it and I put a text frame on it. And then I paste the text in it. So let's get rid of the top bit. You can see that that just sits there neatly on the top. There's no master page. If I were to apply the master page to that, so we will apply the master. We will choose the logo one. Where's the text? Well, it doesn't automatically go into the text frame. It keeps the content of the page that we have, and I would then need to move that down. I can put it in exactly the same place if I want, but it's independent of the master. Now, in terms of expanding the rest of the content that I pasted in, because you can see there's too much content here, and there's too much content on this page with the master, what I would need to do is hold the Shift key down and click that button, and it would add all of the remaining pages that I need. Notice with this one that had the master page, that text goes into the frame. Let's go back and find page 2, which was this one. Oh dear, it's put it over the top of it. Oh dear. This is what happens to you, isn't it? And you're like, what went wrong there? What it's done is it's threaded it through it. So it's actually behind it. Now ours is at the top, which we didn't particularly want. So things to think about in terms of that. What I could do with this is get rid of the one on the page, and you can see then it's threaded through it. If I undo that and I bring that back, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy my page, go to the end. I will add another page for me to put my content on. There is my content. This is separate from the background. And at this point, if I go in there and I shift click it, I get all of the pages that I need, or I should do. Here they are. And this is separate from the master page. It's threaded from page to page, but it's separate from the master page. Which should you use and why? Totally up to you. Totally up to you. Just be aware that it is fractionally different. So we added in that circumstance static content, which was the branding. We added the icon. We added the line below. Right, what I'm going to do at this stage with this is let's get rid of all of the pages because I am going to carry on using this. Right, so I will in here delete all of those pages, which leaves me with one page. Right, we will come back to that in a second. Right, so we now need dynamic content. Now, dynamic content is content that you want on every page or every page that that master is applied to, but you want it to dynamically update. It isn't something that you want to go into and change every instance of. The obvious demonstration for this is page numbers, and that is where we'll start. Handily, it's not where we'll finish though. There's lots more things that we can add as dynamic content. So we will start off with page numbers in this file. So again, the first thing to think about is where are you when you are adding this? And you need to make sure that you have double clicked on your master page. And we will be working down here. So you're going to need a text box to hold your page number. Right, let's put that in. It can be whatever size you want it to be. I would not put it straight up to the line. I'd either leave a gap or make it a little bit taller. And then I would move the text down. So if I want this to say page number whatever, you can see how close that is to it. And if I do a preview, that doesn't look great. So what I do with that is make sure with my text that I align it to the middle of the text frame. Now, that will work for me in this file. It might not work for you. It might start jumping around. And what would be happening at that stage is that you would have a baseline grid. By default, the documents do not have a baseline grid, but you've probably seen a short video, a genuine short on YouTube, 30 seconds or less, telling you need a baseline grid, so you've turned it on. And now weirdness is happening and you don't know why. So if I turn the baseline grid on, notice that moved fractionally. Not catastrophically so, but it moved. Right, if I make this bigger, you can see what's happening. As the baseline grid changes, that moves, and I don't want it to. So I'll leave that baseline grid on for the moment so we can see it. But how do I get this text where I want it to be? Because it's jumping around, and I don't want it to jump around. Right, you have options with that. So I've selected that frame, and I am bringing on a panel that I have on my third monitor, which is the text frame panel. And you have two things that you can do with this that I would save and only use sparingly. It's a bit like adding salt and pepper to food, sparingly. But you can choose to ignore the baseline grid, and that will enable you to place that wherever you like. The other thing that you can choose to ignore is the text wrap. That works well for things like captions. But we looked at captions last week, not this week. Right, this won't have any impact at all if you don't have a baseline grid. But if you find that your text is jumping all over the place, you probably do. And that is what you do to avoid the baseline grid. I'm not going to use a baseline grid in here. Let's not overcomplicate things. Right, so I've got the word page. That's static. What I now need is the number. For that, I go to Text, Insert, Fields. And I have a range of commonly used fields here in the menu. I also have access to more fields, and those fields would be in the Fields panel. But the common ones you need here are available, so page number. Now, some people have said when they put this in, oh, it's all gone wrong, it's a hash sign. That's because you're on the master page, and right back at the beginning, I said your master pages are not output. So it has to have a kind of holding thing. At this stage, if you're concerned, go and check on your page, and you can see it says page 1. If you were to add extra pages, so let's add 3 extra pages. That one says page 2, that one says page 3, and that one says page 4. So it has worked. Now, I was also told, to me, I'm doing a demonstration, and that's principle, and that is perfect. You've now got page numbers in every page, and I get told, I can't possibly follow this demonstration because that's not formatted correctly and you had styles I didn't have. Really? Get a life, just saying. But it does make sense with page numbers that they are formatted slightly differently than the rest of your text. They could be italic, they could be in a different font, they could be smaller. I would say definitely smaller. So we will cover that despite the fact we've got lots to do. We'll do it very, very quickly. Text styles are what you need. I made this file from new. I have not customized these in any way, shape or form. I am not a magician here. So what I will do is I have a body style. What I would like to have is a duplicate of that. I could even say create the style based on body. That will do nicely. And this is going to be my footer style. Now, I'll caveat this before I do it. This is not how I do it. I have 3 footer styles in a footer style group aligned to the left, the centre and the right. Time is of the essence today. I'm going to have 1. It'll do. Right, so what that looks like is my footer style is based on body and my body style is based on base. Which means if I wanted that to be Times New Roman, to match the rest of my document, I would go to the base style, which is the highest style, and that one is where the font is set. So in here, let's change that to Times New Roman. Now, why didn't that ripple through? Because it's not applied yet. Let's apply the footer style, and it has updated. But it's still too big. I don't change the size at base level because that would change body and footer and base. I go into the footer and I edit just this at this level. And where it says no change, I change that to something smaller, probably 7 or 8 points. And that is how you add a page number that looks perfect. We've got to zoom in to see it, but there it is. If you wanted that page number then right aligned, you would go into your master page. Do not try fiddling at the page level. Go into the master page, and you could do one of two things, depending on your footer style. The first thing you could do is just set the alignment to be right aligned. But then your footer style is the footer style and it has a plus next to it. If you want everything right aligned all the time there, then you would right click on your style and you would say update the footer style. And now that footer style is defined as having it aligned to the right and there's no plus shown. One thing that drives me mad, I don't think that looks neat and tidy. I think it would be better if this page number was pulled back slightly, so this kind of just hung over it a little bit. You have two options for that. One is to go back to your text frame in here, and one of the things you can do is put an inset like that, and that will move the text back from the right hand edge by 2 millimeters or 1 millimeter. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, oh, don't start. Trying to move these. Oh, no. I've got to click this at just the right spot or it breaks them up. Right, the other way to do it would be in your footer style, where you go into here and you have your spacing options, and you could say, I want a right indent. Let's do this. No, hang on, it's not that. Is it the last line indent? There we go. So I want a right indent or a last line indent of 2 millimeters, and it does exactly the same thing. Which is best depends on what you want to do with it. It's up to you. Doesn't matter. Because the final output is either going to be printed or a PDF, and how you did it doesn't matter. So just do the way that you're happy with. Right, we have a page number. Right, that's one page number. Right, now this is a good point to show you. What if I wanted some pages to say page X of Y? Right, well, I've pretty much got the master page content as I want it. So a good idea would be to say, let's duplicate that. So we duplicate it. We now have logo 2. We will call this page X of Y. And we're going to change things in here. So we have page X of Y and we have it centered. Well, we've got page X, so we're halfway there. We just need the and Y. And what I am going to do with that is center it. I'm not going to fiddle with styles. We've done styles before, but you would probably create styles. And in there, say page X of, and now I need the page count. So I'm going back to text and down to insert, over to fields, and let's look what we've got. The next frame page number, so that would be where you've got continued on. Oh, total pages. That looks hopeful. And it knows there are 4 pages, so it actually puts that in. And now we have our page X of Y. Bearing in mind that that is the master page. It's not applied to any of these pages. So we will go down to page 3. We will see that at the moment it's got a different master page applied. And all I will do is drag X of Y over page 3, and that will update it to be page X of Y. You may want other information in there. So for example, in this logo one, we have over this side the page number, but it might be an idea to have the title of the file. How do we do that? Well, you make sure that you're on the master page. And then you make a decision. Do you want to fiddle around with tab stops? Pro tip, don't bother. Move one, they all move. So what I'm going to do is take that down, shrink it down. We'll have it about 70 over there. I want the page number over here, and it's easier for me to have it separate. It also means if I do that, I just duplicated that then. It also means that I can put these in the assets panel and drag and drop them onto masters, and that makes your work even easier. But it's not aligned correctly, so it needs to be aligned to the left. This is why I have 3 styles. I would also want that indenting a little bit, so we'll indent it, but it doesn't need to say page X anymore, does it? So I'll delete that, and I now have a text box ready for me to put the title in. What's the title of the document? It's not saved yet, so nothing. That's another gotcha. If it's not saved, and to be honest, I've done that much work, it should be by now, but I'll leave it just to show you what happens. It will look confusing. So I go to text, I go down to insert, back to fields, and I have a look what's in here. And do I have title? Document title. Doesn't look like I do. It's got lots of dates and times and things. Right, so I'm going to click on more. And that is going to bring the fields panel to the front, or it will open it if you don't have it open. So let's drag it out so you can see what's in there. There's all sorts in there. And one of the things happens to be the title of the document. But because it's not saved, it doesn't have a title. It does have an author though, and if I double click on there, it will put the author in here. Well, that's good, but we wanted the title, so let's get rid of that. We'll go back and we'll double click title. Not done a thing. Actually, it has. It's worked. But it gives you no indication, which is a bit ridiculous. It would be nice if it had little angle brackets and said, I'm a title, and when I've got one, I'll show it to you. But it doesn't. But at this point, don't think it's not worked and then put 3 more in, because then you'll get document title, document title, document title. So don't do that. Best thing you can do is go and give the document a title in here. Right, my new document. And as soon as you press tab or enter, it will put that information there. But I would like to see the field. But there we go. Now, there's probably a trick that you can show the fields, but by default, that's not what happens. So I'm just talking you through what issues may arise when you're working with a default setup. Right, while we're talking about the document title is your best friend. Because that's why I have the fields showing all the time. When you make a PDF and you upload it to the internet for the use of, whatever is specified as the document title in this panel will be shown in the browser. So you don't want an embarrassing example where you were in a bit of a mood and you wrote your resignation letter and you called it resignation letter, and then you did something for work and you've saved it and you didn't update the title. That is where you need to keep. The last thing you should do before you produce anything is check that title. Because the number of times that Mike said to me, you do know the title's wrong, don't you? I'm like, oh, darn it, not again. But that's what happens. That is where you need to change it. So I have that showing all the time next to the appearance over there. We will return to that shortly. But now what we have is, if I was to save that, so we'll save that as my new document, so it matches the title down there. If I want to change that, but still leave the file called my new document, because my new document, not the best title, is it? Right, let's say it's the accounts report. Right, it will automatically update. So there's a bit of a disconnect between the title of your document and the title of the document that is shown. But that can be useful because you want to call the document one thing internally, but you would like a different title, and that is where you would do that. So that's the dynamic content, but it doesn't stop there. So we've got that file. That is not where it stops. Right, we have advanced dynamic content. So most of the content that is dynamic is things like file names, author names, page numbers, page count. It could be where the story continues, anything like that. But you also have the option to use advanced dynamic content. This is a little bit more advanced because you need to specify things for it to work. It doesn't work by itself. You need to specify things. So I'm having a look here. I think it would probably be a better idea to show you this happening and then show you how to do it. So I'm going to open a file here and talk you through what we've got. Right, we have a blank master and we have a header and footer master. In the header and footer master, we have a title of the document, which is coming from here, running headers. We have page X of Y at the bottom. We have our little line. You can see in here it's got my styles in it, so there's 3 for the footer. But it also has a header. And in the header, it has a running header. Now, that's advanced dynamic content because it doesn't seem to do a thing without you doing something extra. So, those are the master pages. Let's have a look at the actual pages. And in here, we've got sample data. So we can see it says chapter 1. So the running header is saying chapter 1. On this page, the running header is saying table of contents. And if we move down, this one is the end of chapter 1. This is the beginning of chapter 2, and our running header says chapter 2. Awesome. But how do you do that? Right, there is a trick to this. So let's go back to our file. Could we do it with this file? Let me have a look at it. We probably could. Would it get messy? It might. I think we should start again. And that way it will be absolutely clear what's going on. So in this file, I've got no master pages. Well, I'm going to need a master page, aren't I? So this one would be my header and footer. And I would need to do the magic that I've done on the other files. Well, at least in here, I could go and get that, I think. I think we could get these 2 at the bottom, plus the line. We get hold of that lot. Will that work? There we go. Now, notice it's got no file name, so it looks blank. It's probably worth putting in a title, even if that title just says title. And that's what I do with a document. And if it's in caps, I know it's not the proper title. I know it's a placeholder, but at least I can see it. So we have the title. We have that. What we don't have is the running header at the top. Nor do we have the actual content of the file, but the content of the file will come shortly. What we do need up here is that running header. So we need somewhere to put it. So let's put a text box on there. I'm going to format that. So shall we format it with one of my styles in here? What have we got? We've got a footer style. That'll do. It'll be the right size, etc. If that is concerning you, what I would quickly do with that is duplicate it and call it header. And now I can work the 2 separately. So all I need to do is just swap it and say that's the header. So the header is going to go in here. I'll put it in the middle. And what it's going to be is the running header. Well, if we go back to text and insert and we look at our fields, running header is an option in here. So we'll do that. And it actually says running header. So we're getting somewhere with that. We do have a placeholder for that one. Now, if I then go to this page, that master page not applied. So I need to apply it. Right. So far, so good. Only it said running header and now it's saying nothing. You need to do one more thing for that running header to work, which is why this is advanced custom or dynamic fields rather than just dynamic fields. Because if you don't do the next bit, it doesn't work. But before we fix it, we need some text on here. So I will put a text placeholder on there. It's a demo, so it's not going to be formatted perfectly. It's just going to be text. Right, in my running header document, here's my text. So what I can do with that is copy the lot for speed. And if I put that in here, there's chapter 1. Notice at this point, I've got overflowing text. I am going to hold the Shift key and click it, and it is going to make me 29 pages. There we go. There's all my pages. Right, what I will then need to do in here to make this work is more than one thing, but in terms of the running header, I would only need to do one thing. But at the moment, how does it know that this is chapter 1, as opposed to this, where's chapter 2, there. And I see something has happened there. So what I will do, that needs to be top aligned. Has that fixed everything else? No, it hasn't. Crying out loud. I'm not going to take the time and fix it. But it did that because up here, the last setting I had for this was to center align it vertically. And it's done the same with that text box, which is very annoying, isn't it? Let me see if shall I just undo it? We'll undo it. We'll go back to have one page and we'll fix it. Right, so in here, this is set. This is to do with the fact it always remembers the last thing. Sometimes I wish it had amnesia. Right, so it centered it vertically. What I would need to do before I duplicate it is align it to the top and then create the extra files, and then that will work. So when we went to page 4, it's now aligned properly. Okay, but how does it know that this is page 2? Short answer, it doesn't. Not unless you tell it. It's got no clue. No clue. So, at this stage, we need to do 2 things. We need to tell it where the chapters are, and we need up here to get a running header showing. So I'll show you how to do that first. Back in our master, it says running header. So that is correct, but we're not seeing it. Right, we need to go into the fields panel, and in here we have running header. So it's under the document sections, and it says running header. But the trick is the 3 dots where you tell it where to get it from. So at the moment, it's looking for heading 1. And it's going to use the first one it finds on the page. So if we go back in here, is this formatted? No, it's coming as heading 3. It needs to be heading 1. Now, which heading 1? Well, it's that one, because if you look up here, it now says chapter 1. So what happened was that we need to tell it what the chapters are based on a style. So we'll go and find the next one, which is chapter 2. And it was a heading 3 in the document I had. That's why it's come in like that. I had that heading 3 with some settings that moved it down. And that's why, as I'm applying a heading 1, it has shot off somewhere else. So you can see in here that chapter 2 now isn't on its own page. So in my heading styles, if you want to know more about styles, this is not the session. There was a dedicated session on that. Just check out the channel. But in here, in my flow options, I'm going to say, anytime you come across a heading 1, put it on the next page. And that will mean that every chapter starts on its own page. And notice this says chapter 2 now. So all we need to do is go through these and make sure that we have the correct style applied to this. And when I say correct style, how do you know which style? Well, it's the one that you told it in here. It's a heading 1. Now, what I could have done was just say, well, not that one, use heading 3. And that would have done it as well. It just depends on how your document and how that works. So we'll go through to chapter 4. We will make sure that that has the right heading. And then we will come into here and make sure that that has the right heading. And now, and it does take a fraction of a second to update, so it's still saying chapter 4. And, 10 seconds later, it updates to chapter 5. And that is how you make a running heading. You do have options with that, as you can see from the 3 dots, which are, do you want the first one on the page, the last one on the page? Do you want limits? Do you want it to include paragraph numbers, etc., etc.? Do you want to change the case of it? You could do all of that. But to get it working, unlike any other field we've looked at so far, you needed to do that extra step, which was choose the style. And that was what you needed to do with it. Now, next thing we need to look at is not that. No. Right, what we need to look at now is other options that you have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a finished file. In fact, it's not finished. It looks finished. It's not finished. It's at the review stage. But what I have in here, hopefully I'll find it. It's that one. Right. This one has got all kinds of magic in here already. So it has a table of contents, and that goes over 2 pages. It has an introduction to it. It has content. But it also has other things going on in here, which I haven't included all of them. But in here, I have separate sections of the document because on the cover, we have nothing. On the contents, we would want that to be a page 1, which is usually a little I. This one would be 2. And then when we come onto the content of the file, we want it to go back to 1, which it does. I think it carries on all the way through at that point. Right, you can see different page numbers as we go. There's tables in there, there's all kinds of content in there, there's FAQs in there. And then when we come to the back, that's the last content page. This is the last page in it, and we have the last page. And the last page does not have page numbers on it. Even better than this is some magic that you can do, which if we've got time, I'll show you later. It's a knock-on effect of what I'm about to show you. But if I added some content, it would automatically add it in the right place. So if I added another 10 questions, I would get my overflow and I would hold the Shift key and click it, and it would put it in the right place. In terms of, I would want that to follow on from the rest of the content, not be put after the back page. How on earth does it do all of that? Well, there is something called the section manager. And I have sectioned off this document, and that is how it does it. So I've told it that the first page is the cover. The next pages are the table of contents. Then I have the content of the file. Then I have an about page, and then I have a back cover. And all of that is how it knows which bit belongs to which. So the cover starts on page 1. It's called cover. The table of contents starts on page 2, but the numbering starts at 1. The content starts on page 4, but the numbering starts at 1. This one being standard numbers, and this one being Roman numerals. Then we've got the about page. Now that one starts on page 23, but it doesn't restart the numbering. It's just another section. You might say to yourself, well, if the page numbering carries on, why bother with another section? But what I've just told you is if I add content to section 3, the content section, if I didn't have that section, it would put it behind the back cover. By having the content section, it knows that if the content starts in the content section, add the required number of pages for that content, but only to the content section. Do not start wrapping it around the other sections. It's got a dedicated, discrete section for its own content. Now, how do you do something like that? So that's what we're aiming for. But we have our document here, don't we, with different sections in here. Right, let's say that what we want here is a table of contents at the beginning, and we might want a cover as well. So we'll go to the first page. We are going to need 2 pages. We want them before page 1. Do we want the header and footer on them? No, not really, not with these. So we'll set it to none and just click OK. I'm not going to win any prizes for design today in here. It's a demo altogether. It's a demo. This is going to be the cover page. So I will just put the word cover page on it. Point of that being, I don't want any page numbers on it, no matter what. Don't want it included either. This one is going to be the table of contents. So I'll copy that, put that in there, put in there, table of contents. Right, like that. Okay. Now this could go on to more than one page. We would need to consider that. Do we need to worry about it at this stage? No. Do you need to put 10 pages in case the table of contents is huge? No. Sections will take care of that. Right. Let's put in on here. We do have a page that it's not used. Probably to do with the styling, in which case I can get rid of that. If I need it later, I will add it back. But at this stage, I'm going to put at the back, I want 2 more pages after the last page. and I'll have those with none. And OK. Right, we've now got a document ready to work with. What you need to know is, what are these pages? Well, we'll just call this back matter, which is stuff that is at the end of a book. And this will be the back cover. So we will put that in there. It seems to have an inability to type a lowercase o. Right, so but the back matter is going to be there and the back cover page is going to be there. Right, what I'm about to do will solve all of the problems you will have with page management. And Mike's had his issues with page management, haven't you, Mike? When you tried to insert a page.
Yes.
Yes, it didn't end well, did it?
No.
No, let's not go into it, says Mike. Right. That's because Mike didn't know about sections, but you're about to. So I will open up the section manager at that point, and this is what it looks like by default. I have seen questions that people have said, I want to start my page numbering on page 3, and I want that to say page 1. And they're looking at the section manager and saying, why can't I just start on page 3? You've only got one section. You're going to need multiple sections to do this. So what I'll do is, I'll go to the cover page, and this is going to be the first one. But it's already got one section. It's just got everything in it. So the best place to start is page 2. This one's going to be my table of contents. So I can click add here and notice that section 1, that's my cover page, is pages 1 to 1. This one, which is my table of contents, starts on page 2. Right, it starts on page 2, fine, but table of contents, want to start the renumbering at 1. I am going to take the time and name it. So I'll put table of contents in there. You do have to leave that field for it to take, so tab or move away. And I would like that to be the lowercase Roman numerals. So far, so good. Right, section 1, that's my cover. So in the name, I'm going to take the time, future you will thank past you for taking the time and saying that's the cover. Now, this page, that's where my content starts. Okay, so I'll make another section. Important thing there is that is content. It's going to start on page 3, but I want it to restart the numbering at page 1, standard numbers. Now notice I put content and it disappeared. Sometimes that happens, despite the fact that I tabbed out of it. Right, now it's back. Right, I'm going to move all the way to the end, and I've got my back matter. Now, another way to add a section, even with the section manager closed, is to right-click and say Start New Section. And it starts a new section in here, starting on page 31. Now, that's the back matter. So let's restart that at 1. I will call it what it is, which is back matter. And how do I want it numbered? Well, I might, with the back matter, want it like a lowercase ABC. That might work. Completely up to you. And the last thing I need is the cover. So I'm going to go in there and say Start New Section. And that gives me this. Starting on page 32. The numbering doesn't matter because we're not going to see it. But I will name the section back cover so I know what it is. And now you have a perfectly formatted document. Now, when I say perfectly formatted, that will enable us to use the section names, the sections of the document, in the document itself. But it will also mean that as we add content, like the table of contents, if the table of contents went over 2 pages, it would still work beautifully. So what I mean by that, let me see if I can do it. This is a live document, so this is very dangerous. Don't let me save this document. Right, if we were in here, initially that table of contents was very short. It didn't go on to 2 pages. If I come in here and I delete that, I've deleted the page, the table of contents. What that's done is, I know a lot of you are now taking a very deep breath. Don't do that. It's fine. It's fine. The table of contents is now spilling out of here. All right. But the next page is in a different section. It's the About section that starts the content. So when I made this template, it had 1 page for the contents. But this has got, it needs more space. So if I click in there and I hold the Shift key down and do that, it adds a page. We're back to where we started, But notice where it added it. It added it straight after here. It named it correctly because it knew which section it was in. It did not bother the rest of the text. Nothing bad happened to the rest of the text. It is all working perfectly. That is page 1 of that section. That is page 2. This got added correctly because there are sections in this document. That's why you bother and you take the time. So back in here, we have that. Now, up here, we have our running header. We don't have that on here, but we could do. If we applied that to it, we would. Notice table of contents, it's got I on it. So that's coming from the sections that you've just defined. It's not that you need another master page. You don't. Although you've got 5 different styles of page numbers in this document now, you only have one master page. Right, so now we've got sections. If you want to use sections in the layout here, you go back to the header and footer. Purely for speed, I'm going to grab that and copy it, put it up there, get it aligned, give or take with that. But we don't want the title in it. What we want in there is the section. So if we look at what we've got over here, we should have section in there somewhere, or it might even be available from insert fields. Let's have a look. There you go, section name. So if we put the section name in there, and the section name can be whatever you want it to be. But if we go into here, you can see my section name was table of contents. Now, if I want that to show through, it would have been better if I'd actually called it table of contents, wouldn't it, rather than TOC. But I can do that by coming in here and making the change. And as soon as I do that, it ripples through. So you can either use these in code for yourself and not show them in the document, or if you want to show the sections in the document, then name them in here and make sure that it's taken, if you're with me, that the content is in that text box before you move and think it's broken. Tab usually works. It takes you back to the top there. Enter usually works as well. So you can use either of those. And now you have the section come through. But just adding those sections to put the title at the top, you can if you want, but you are adding intelligence to your document by adding sections. Sections give you superpowers when it comes to laying things out, automatically adding pages. It's amazing. So it is worth the time to add sections to it. Right, so we've got that in there. Let me have a look. Done that. Right, let's go on to here. So I'll save that one. That one was running headers, etc., wasn't it? Running headers, etc. This one I'm going to close before I save it because I know it was right, so we're not saving that one. Okay, let's have a look at the next thing. So we've been working with multiple master pages, but we've only been applying them one at a time. And the good news is, or the bad news, depending on how you look at it, the good news is you can use multiple master pages. Before you try that, make sure you're comfortable with it because it gets complicated fast, but you can do it. So let's have a look at multiple master pages. Now, you already know that the default is to have one single master page. So when you're in your new dialog box, even if you do choose multi-page and you choose to have a default master, it's one master like that. Now, one thing I should probably mention at this stage is looking at this spread. If in here, let's say I wanted another 7 pages. So a quick aside. I've been showing you this on individual pages. If it's a spread that you have and you want to put page numbers on it, you do have to do it twice. So if we look at, where's my page numbers? Let's go for that one there. So in here, I'm just going to grab that field because it's got the page numbers in it and put it in there and it will work. But if you wanted this on this side as well, you would have to copy it over to this side. And to be honest, the layout of that is usually that is that side and it's left aligned. And that is how you would do it on a spread rather than individual pages. And I'm just going to indent that by 2 from the left there. So now that mirrors itself. I think it is lined up, isn't it? There we go. That's how you would do it on a spread. What you can then do with that spread is drag and drop it down here, and it will apply page numbers. So there's page 2, there's page 3. It will apply it on both sides. Okay, but we're talking about single masters here and stacked masters. So the only thing you have to think about with masters is using multiple masters. It can get complicated. I will show you multiple masters in here. So this is a file that's got multiple masters in it. Now, this is one of the files that's in today's bonus. There is a bonus, right? This is what it looks like. Okay, we've got content from master 1, master 2, 3, 4, and 5. What is she talking about? Well, let's have a look at the master pages. We have in here 5 master pages. Each one has content. I know it's not very exciting content. It's a demo, right? And each one of these has a different colour, right? This is what it looks like when it's finished. A little rainbow of applied masters. It tells you that all 5 are applied, and it gives you a little colour for each one. Fabulous, isn't it? So what we can do in here, let's go to these pages. We can say, let's apply master 1 to this. So I'm dragging and dropping it and making sure that the blue border is around both pages in the spread. If I'm to the left, it won't apply to the right. If I'm over the right, it won't apply to the left. So make sure it's bang in the middle. And it tells you that the content is available from master 1. It also puts a red stripe at the top. If we move down to this one and we choose master 2 and apply that, it now has a yellow stripe at the top, and we've got content from master 2. At that point, what we're doing is applying one master to each page. But how on earth did we get this? Now, I'm not recommending this as best practice, but someone's going to be bound to want to try it. So this is how you would do it. So this one here has master 1 applied. What if I wanted master 2 applied? Well, you saw I can drag and drop it, and it swaps it. The default behavior when you drag and drop is that it replaces it. That's not what we want. So let's add master 1 back to it. This time I'm going to right click and say apply master. Master 1 is already applied. What I'm going to do is say apply master 2. But don't press enter yet. I need to select to replace, and I don't want it to replace the existing. That's the default behavior. So I need to take the tick out of replace existing. What that will do is it will stack master 1 and master 2 on the same page. And the content from both masters will come through to this page. It will also show you, when you hover, that it will say master 1 and master 2. And because I added colour, it will light up like a Christmas tree. Let me do that again. Right click, apply master, choose master 3. Make sure you take the tick out of replace existing and click OK. Now we have 3 lights up on each one of these, and we have the content from master 3. And so forth. That's how we got all 5. Now, while we're in here, I'll also show you that you're not limited to having content on the right and left page from the same master. So first of all, I will clear the master. So we've got nothing. Right, so clean virgin page there. Let's say that I wanted content from master 1 on the left and content from master 2 on the right. You do not have to go in and make another master page that's exactly what you want and you drag and drop it on. You don't need to do that. You've already got the content in master 1 and you've got the content in master 2. You just want to have one on the left and one on the right, and that's really simple. You drag one over to here. You make sure that you only have the blue border around the left-hand page, and you drop. You then go to master 2 and do the same, but hover over the right-hand page, and now you've got a mixed and matched master from master 1 and master 2. Now that is really useful when you have masters that have full screen images, full page images. So just to show you that, if I add another master here, and I say that is full page image. And I add another one, which is full page text. So full page text. Right, I've now got 2 master pages that I need to tinker with. So if this is my full page images, now I want one on the left and one on the right. I put some placeholders on them. So there's a placeholder on one side. There's the placeholder on the other. That's great if I want 2 images in 2 pages in a single spread. In here, what I'm going to do is put a text frame like that on each side. So that's my text frame. Just so I can see that that text frame is applied for no other reason, I'll put a colour in it. Try and make it less offensive than that. Let's take it down to there. Right, and that is going to be my text box. So I've done it that colour purely so we can see it. Otherwise we wouldn't see anything. So that is 2 text placeholders. This is 2 image placeholders. Right, what does that look like back in our pages? Well, we'll scoot down to them so we can see them. And we will, in here, we'll add 2 more pages. So we'll add 2 after page 7. That should work. Right, it's automatically applied the last master that was on page 7, which we don't want, so we'll clear it. And what I want on here, if what I wanted was double page of text, drag and drop to the middle. That's not what I want. I want an image on the left-hand side and text on the right-hand side. And that way you don't have to overmake your masters where you've got one with both for the image and text, and then you've got an image on the left and text on the right, text on the left and an image on the right, because you're managing multiple masters and you don't need to. Okay, that is how you would handle that. But what I will say about that is it's great as far as it goes, but this situation that you see on here, yes, it's complicated for how it works. What's stacked where, what's the stacking order, all the rest of it. It's complicated. It's probably not best practice. Best practice would be that you think the thing through first, not just randomly, I want that and I want that and I want that. Okay? So if you were thinking it through, you may end up with an entirely different idea, which would be this. Well, what we've done is we've looked at master pages that apply to content pages. What we're now looking at is master pages can apply to other master pages. What does that mean for you? It means everything can be a whole lot more simple. So I will get another new file. I will go and get some content from here, just so we have some content on it. So what I'm going to do in my master file here, in fact, to simplify this a little bit, I'm not going to have multiple pages. It works exactly the same. It's just from a learning perspective, you look at it and you look overwhelmed. So I will add a master page. This one is going to be my base master. Right, what does that mean? I'll show you that in a minute. And the next one is going to be, let's say this is footers. This one's going to have the footer on it. So there's the footer page. Right, the footer page now has the page number in the footer. Right, but in here we want to apply the base master and the page numbers. Now, why might we want to do that? Well, in here we could have some margins and other magic like that, couldn't we? Because we do have, should we do some guides in here? Let's say that we wanted to have 3 columns like my book layout, like that. So we want 3 columns. We also want some margins. So we put margins in, and we'll leave that 10 all the way around. Oh no, we've got a footer, haven't we? So let's make sure we've got some breathing space at the bottom for that. You can put guides in here as well if you want. You can change the gutter. My gutter is usually 6, a little bit tighter than that. And OK. And that's what's on the base master. On page 1, that's not applied. But what we'd like on page 1 is to see the guides, columns, margins, etc., and to see the page numbers. Now, you know that we can add the first one and then add the second one. We could do that, but that gets complicated. So a better way is to say, well, this is my base, and that needs to apply to my page numbers. So drag and drop it over another master. And then what you get is the fact that the footer master includes elements from the base master, which means, so we can see it, I'll make that one red and I'll make that one green. Right, you can see that this one has got the red stripe indicating that base is applied to it. I'm going to apply that to the page. And when I go down here, you can see that one has got the green stripe indicating that this master is applied to it. What it doesn't tell you, without you looking at the master pages, is yes, it's got the green master applied to it, but the green master had the red master applied to it, so we've actually got both. And that is parent-child master pages. Okay, not as difficult as you would imagine. Right, I will show you the next one. Let me have a look on here. Right, the next thing we're looking at, editing master page content from the content pages. Normally, when you have content on a master page, you want that to ripple through to the content page and that's it. And you don't want to make any changes to it. If you do, you want the changes to be made across the board, which means you go and edit it in the master page. That's all you need to do. But there are times you might want to make other changes. So let's have a look at that. Right, I mean, do I have one in here? I think I do. Just check there. Right. I've got a file that's got a watermark in it. So I'm opening this up. Right. All this has, take you through what it's got, a blank page with a full footer and a watermark. Now, you can see from the content in here that there's my content and there is the watermark, for want of a better word. Right. And it's got content in it. I haven't used in here the page number one. I could put the full footer in it. If I do that, we get these so we can do that. Let's apply that one to here. You can see that the watermark disappears from it, but now it's got a page footer. So what we were doing in the other one was we applied the child parent thing. So we could do that, and I've left it in the file so you can have a play with it if you want to do that. But what we're going to look at here is how all of this works. Now, I need to show you that by default, this is just a shape. So I'm going to take that away. That will show you that this is just content that's on the page. But I have applied the watermark master. So if I put the watermark on the master and we go back into here, we see what it looks like. So looked at down here, this is not what would happen by default. I would have to open another file for that, which is this one. Right, this is what would really happen. Now, I know it looks the same, it doesn't. There's the watermark. It's on the master. So when we apply the master to the content, look at the difference between these two files. This one has the watermark behind it. This one has it over the top. Now, if you think of how a master works, anything that's on a master is going to be behind your content. There's the master, there's your content. So this is behind it. Okay? But if what you wanted was to have this situation where it's over the top, and I do know that it obscures the text, but look, it's top secret, so that doesn't really matter, does it? And anyway, it's a watermark. You would probably, this is literally a demo, because you can't see the text if it's over the top. And if I change the opacity, you would see it whether it was in front of the text or behind the text. So, all together now, it's a demo. But what if we wanted the top secret in front of the text like this and not the default behavior, which is behind the text like that? Now, what needs to happen is really simple. In your layers panel, you need your master higher in the stacking order than your content. It's that simple. Now, let's imagine you've got 500 pages. Then it's not quite so simple, is it? Because you go into here and it's back behind it again. Right, so it's not bad, but it's not that straightforward either. So let's put that back behind it. This would be what you would need to do. If you want this to happen on one single page, you've got two options. You either do what you saw me do, which is drag that over the top and you're done. That's one option. The other option you've got is that you can right click in here and you have some options to edit linked or edit detached. Now, if you're editing detached, it means you're changing the master page only for this content page. Most of the time when you do this, you will want to edit linked, where what you do on one page ripples through to every other content page that the master page is applied to. So let's check at this stage that this is behind on all these pages. It's behind there, it's behind there, and it's behind there. Doesn't matter what page you do this on, you are going to right click and choose Edit Linked. And that flashes up this editing bar at the top to tell you that you are editing a master page that is linked to all of the pages it applies to. That's what you're doing. Right. With this selected, I'm then going to go to the Layer menu and I'm going to arrange it by moving it to the front. Don't drag and drop it, use the menu. So we'll make sure it's at the front. The other thing to remember at this stage is make sure you've finished editing. So click Finish. On this page, which is page 3, the watermark is now on the top. We go through to this one, it's on the top. We go through to this one, it's on the top. That is how you would do that when you've got all your content pages in there. There really isn't a better way to do that in terms of setting it up to do that from the beginning. But it is very simple to do that. Be careful if you are editing that, because it's very easy to make a change. I once had a support call from somebody who had managed to get an image on a page and couldn't move it. And he couldn't move it in the master either. And it was to do with somehow he'd managed to edit it unlinked, move it, and then couldn't get back to it. So just be very careful with that option. We're talking advanced at this point. Now, I did have one question, which was, I think that's the next thing actually that we're going to look at. Oh, that's interesting. Wrong button, but never mind. What happens if you delete master pages? Is there ever a case that you would delete a master page? Yes, there is. If you're trying to reduce your file size and those master pages aren't in use anyway, you may want to delete them. However, depending on what's on them, it's probably best to leave it until you're signing off the document before you delete anything. But what happens if you do delete them? So in here we have our watermark master page. Let me get that so we can see it. No, that's our blank one. There's our watermark. Okay. What would happen if I delete that? And delete is an option. Now, because this master page is applied to other pages, it will tell me that I'm about to delete the master, which is called watermark. It's in use by one or more pages, and if I delete the content, if I delete the master page, it will delete the content, and it will remove it from all of those pages. Am I sure I want to do that? 9 times out of 10, the answer to that's going to be no, but just to show you, I will delete the master. Takes a few seconds for the thumbnails to update, but once they're updated, the content of that master page is gone. At that point, you should have one more question, which is, oh no, I didn't, even though it stopped me and even though it prompted me, I did it anyway. Can I undo it? Is it something that's undoable? Now we can undo that. We might need to go back more than one. It depends what you've done. So I moved from one page to another, but yes, it is undoable. just something that you need to think about. Right, we are almost done, I do believe. But we're going to head in here and look at switching master pages. Now, it's really easy to switch master pages if what's on the master page is headers and footers and things like that, because it's not interacting with your content. But if the master page that you're using is for layout purposes, so maybe you have a cookery book and you've got 500 recipes using 3 or 4 different masters for the layout of those recipes. And you've laid out a recipe, you've got the text of that in there, you've got images of it, and it looked all right, but now you've changed your mind. And you've got the perfect master page to use instead. But you've already applied a different master page to that recipe. What happens if you switch the master page? What happens if you swap them? So let's have a look at that. And I do believe I have a file for that. So let's open up that file, having a think about it. Come on. There we go. Right, so I've got some content here and I've got 2 master pages. So I put some text in it, it's just placeholder text. And I've got 3 image placeholders. Notice in here I have that coming from a master page called Layout 1. Layout 2 is totally different. It's got 3 images on it, but they're in a totally different location. So what does that mean in terms of swapping these? So in here, I thought that looked great. And I would then, let's go to the stock panel, and we'll do holiday or summer. Let's try summer. No, let's not. Let's try holiday. We want beaches and things. Right, that'll do. So let's imagine here I've put in some images. So I'm putting the images up here. Move that up. What else have we got? Oh, that one's pretty, isn't it? That's nice. We like the colours on that. So put that one in. And finally something smaller. How about that? Nice starfish. Right. So what I've done with this page, which is a content page, is I put my content in it. The text frame is coming from the master. All of these are coming from the master. And yes, I know it's overflowing. Let's not worry about it. It's a demo. So what happens if I just randomly switch from one layout to another? Well, anything could happen, couldn't it? But I think it'll work perfectly. So let's just drag that and drop it on there. And what it's done is it's moved the images, it's kept the correct image in the correct frame. Everything is fine and I'm happier with the layout. But that didn't happen by itself. No, there was magic involved, which was this first layout. I had taken the time. Look at the layers panel. That is the text frame that contains the story. This is the featured image at the bottom. This one is the banner image at the top. And this one is an ancillary image. Okay. When I came to here, they all have the same name. It knows where the story is. It knows where the ancillary image is, the banner image and the featured image. So when I swap from layout 1 to layout 2, it looks at the names of the layers and thinks, okay, I know what needs to go where, including the text in the story. Now, if you hadn't done that, if you hadn't taken the time, it then bases it on other criteria, which as far as you and I are concerned, looks random. It would do it, but the outcome would be less predictable than if you'd done the right thing and named the layers to start with. And you could then have 10 layouts. Now, if you think about this being not a holiday brochure, but that cookery book, you may well in a cookery book have 5, 10 different layouts. As long as these images, because one is going to be the featured image and one will be the banner image, just name everything. Create one of these layouts and then create another one. So if I duplicated that to layout 3, which obviously doesn't do by itself, I'd have to go and name it, but we'll name it layout 3. And I change this, so I put this in the middle, and I put that down there, well, that at the bottom, and a bit lower, Let's just move that over there for the sake of it. This text box that we've got behind it, I'm going to stretch that down. These already have wrap on them, by the way. So the text is pushed around them. But look, the names are the same. So if I now apply layout 3, it will just move it around. Or it will do eventually. Come on, let's apply layout. Was that layout 3? No, I've put it there, haven't I? I've renamed them incorrectly, but there we go. I edited the wrong one, but it still works. It still works. So create one, name everything, and then duplicate it. Right, you'll be glad to know we are almost done, but I've got some secret uses of master pages. Oh, top secret. Top secret uses of master pages, I swear. Now, this is something that I actually do. So I am drinking my own champagne here. Let me show you behind the scenes of one of my files. So I'll go into File New. I'll go into my templates, and I have my ebook template. And there is my ebook template. Right. You've already seen what a finished document looks like based on this template. There was the table of contents. Now, just so you know, we're singing from the same hymn sheet. I have a cover. I have an embryonic table of contents, basically just a placeholder. I then have a welcome to whatever this is and my signature. And then I have some sample placeholder text. That is purely so I've got content for the table of contents, or it would be blank, screaming at me. Then I have a couple of blank pages. I don't really need them. They just must have been left when I made the template. Then I've got about me, and then I have a back page. Some of these are using master pages. So the cover is for a start. So let's have a look what master pages we've got. I have where the text is aligned to the right, where the text is aligned to the left, where the text is full width. I have a blank one, just in case. Then I have different cover pages. So I've had this one for a while. I use this on the brushes collection. Very recently, I took that and I converted it to this. So I've got both now. I have horizontal icons and vertical icons. Just to show you, icon 1, 2, 3, 4 in here, starting with one at the top. But this one, they're named the same because if they've got icons in and I'm switching them to see which looks best, I need to predict which is which. And in this case, it's 1 on the left, 2, 3, 4. So I have multiple pages. I've got that page. I've got this one, which is Life After Publisher. I have a back cover for that. I have a back cover here. But that's not all. I also use this to make my top secret guides. So I've got a cover for that, and I have a background for it in case I want to use that on the page. Here's where we get to the separate ones, the secrets. Right, this one starts with the word admin in capitals, and it says styles, primary. I have in my text styles hundreds of styles. In my base style here, I've got body styles, and I have primary and secondary. Underneath all of these, there's a whole range of styles. I don't want to have to go into there and click edit and have a look at them or apply them to see what they look like. I keep this master page with my content all styled, so I just switch to the master page, have a quick look at it. Okay, that's what it looks like. I also have here what the secondary ones look like. So this is when I have a dark background on the page. This is what my secondary styles look like. So it's a way that I can very quickly see my styles. I also have here this, which is my changelog. So I created this in 2023. You can see I added a custom field for the title of the file. Earlier in the week, I added extra pages. So what a changelog does is tell you things you've added, changed, or removed. You'll notice that this one at the top doesn't have a version or a date. It's saying I added a cover with vertical icon placement, and I numbered the placeholders for the icons on the cover pages. So it's one thing I added and another thing I changed. It's unreleased though, because I know I've got more work to do on this. But what I will do with this, I'll make 1.3 and put the date next to it and move this into it, and this will be my changelog. And that way, I don't need to keep it separate from the file. It lives within the file. And I can think, did I add that? Was that something I thought about adding, or was it something that I actually did? And I can go in here and think, yeah, I did that. I just need to decide when I'm releasing 1.3 and I'm done. So those are bonus uses for that. Let me just have a look in here. Another thing you could do, which I haven't done in this one, is you could leave notes to yourself in there. Because these pages aren't applied to anything. They're not applied to any pages in the actual book. So when I produce the book to a PDF, they're ignored. So they're purely private for my use, but they make working with it a whole lot easier. Okay, now best practices. We focused on master pages. In the hierarchy though, master pages on the left, they are stored in your template file. Your template also stores your sections, text styles, field values, symbols, you name it. What we looked at is the things that can be set up in a master page. And bearing in mind the master page is part of a template. So you've got the bleed, the margins, the guides, branding that I put on there. I put some columns on, I put the grids on there. I had page numbers, running headers, placeholders for text, placeholders for images. So master pages are part of the template system in Affinity by Canva. Do as much as possible, as much work as possible with the master pages, and then create your template. Now, you might appreciate a session on creating and managing templates. Let me know in the chat if you would. Now, there are some things that aren't directly part of the master pages. We did look at sections today. We did briefly look at textiles in terms of creating them, but not greatly, not how to set up the textiles from scratch, or fields, custom fields and symbols and all of that. They are all part of a template, but not directly related to the master page part. And before the pedants start, I will point out that this isn't meant to be exhaustive. If it were, it would look like a map of the underground. This is very broad strokes, that a template is your ultimate aim if you're making multiple copies of a type of file, a church newsletter, a club newsletter, a magazine. You are aiming to have a template, and within that template you would have as much as humanly possible to save you reinventing the wheel at the point that you come to create a file. Right, an example of that would be something like a cookery book. So you would have master pages. What sort of master pages? Well, you'd probably have a front cover, you'd have the front matter, you'd definitely have a table of contents. You might want a section opening. You might be grouping recipes by section, so you've got a section opening. You definitely have recipe page, but probably more than one. I would suggest you would have at least 5 to 10 of those. You would have a master page for the index and anything that's the back matter, and then the back cover. So what that would sort of look like, and you would have a cover like that. You would have your content page maybe. You'd then have different layouts for the pages. So that one's very visual with very little text. This one is actual recipes. So there's different layouts for the recipes. Here's another one with different layouts for the recipes. And a third for different layouts for the recipes. Then towards the back, I've put an index of recipes with a full page image. And finally, a back cover there. Now, the real world example that I've got, you have actually seen, which is that book. But I have a template that book was based on. And it contains the master pages, the sections, the text styles. It's got custom fields in it. It's got field values in there. I will show you very briefly the template. So this one, let me have a look. That's not the actual template. It is based on the template. But it will do. You will see everything in here. So those were the master pages that we'd got. These were the pages, and this is how I start. So if I'm thinking I'll make something about, how about a guide to master pages? There's an idea. Notice that this says title. If we look at our fields over here, we can see that it's in capitals, which I said to you was a placeholder. That was how I did it in terms of being a placeholder. So if this was a guide to mastering master pages. That is what that would come through and look like. Then down here it says updated for version ... Right, well I could edit that, but if we look back up here, you can see that under custom fields I have something called flash version, which is 3 question marks. Which is that one? Well, the latest version is 3.0.3, so I can put that in, and that gets updated down here. It's all in the template. It also says version, and the version says template. What's that talking about? Well, in here, I have, so you know when you're reading a book, is it the latest version? What I can do in there is change that from the word template to a version. So this would be version 1.0.0. And that would then get updated in there. If I had to do all of this, I'd never get anything written, I can assure you. Right, then we've got the actual content. Now, I definitely had a file, and I'd love to know where I put it. Did I put it on the desktop? I'm sure it was called Scotland, but I did have a file. Tell you what, let me go and find that file. Right, was it a markdown file? I think it was. So I could call it Scotland Markdown and see if I can find it. You put some questions in while I'm trying to find this file. Scotland Markdown. Right, have you found it? Oh, you're doing weird things. It's saying it's not found it. Okay. I definitely didn't delete it. Don't lie to me. Oh, now I'm spelling Scotland wrong. Right, there we go. Oh, that's dining data. Maybe it's in here. Right, I've got a file. So do I have some... I do. Excellent. Right, there it is. So this is a file I've got that's just got lots of text in it. And what I want to show you is what happens with that template when I add a lot of text to it. Now, I don't need the Scottish history thing, and I'm very quickly going to show you how I would process this. I would look for 2 hashes and change that to 1. All of that is now updated. And the other problem I've got with this is that between each paragraph, which makes sense in a text editor, I've got 2 carriage returns. That's going to look horrific if I try and take it into Affinity. So what I will do is do a search and replace for 2 new line characters and replace it with 1 new line character, like that. Boom, now the text is sorted. I'm going to copy that text, and I'm going to come in here, and this is exactly what I would do with the content of one of my tutorial books, which is I would come in here and I would delete that. At that point, check your styles. It always remembers the last one. Drives me insane. Heading 1. I don't want everything I paste in here to be a heading 1. So I'm going to change this back to my body style primary, which is that one. Do a quick check. That looks better. And at that point, I'm going to paste this in. Obviously, there is far too much text to fit on one page. These pages, if you remember, were blank. And so let's get rid of them. Let's get the first one and get rid of those 3 pages. So what we've got at this stage is, this was the beginning of our content, and this was the next section in the document. Remember, this template had sections in it, and we are in this section for the content. That's where we are right now. So what I'm going to do is hold the Shift key down and click on that. And it is going to add all of the pages it needs to accommodate all of that text, like that. And it's going to do it before my About Elaine. Right, I'm just going to show you one more thing, which is what I would then do with that. Notice here that my introduction has got this hash at the beginning. If you have seen me demonstrate this before, it takes a couple of seconds, but it is so powerful. I want it to find that and a space. And I want to replace it with a paragraph style, which would be my heading 1 primary. Go find them. That's correct. Go replace them. And now it's done it. Let's lose the hash at the beginning, like that. But let's leave the style. That's important because this is exactly what I do with my content. Exactly what I do. The next step is to say, well, it'd be nice if each chapter started on a new page. That is really simple. I am not going through the text and fiddling. I am going to go and find the heading style that is applied to it. I'm going to edit it and I'm going to tell it to start on the next page. And it will take care of that. That will have had the knock-on effect that in here, I don't have enough space. Hold the Shift key down, click. It will take care of the rest. It finishes there now. And the last thing I do is go back to the table of contents, click in it, in the table of contents, update it. And that's me done. The book is finished. How fast was that? Based on a template and all of those master pages. It is that fast to do it. Okay, so we covered lots. Now you can understand why that does not cover everything that we covered. What I've done is I have put together a collection of master pages that show you page numbers, it shows you page X of Y and other stuff. And I have put it together called the Master Page Collection, which you can find at elainegiles.com/scp-products-master-page-collection-for-affinity. And that is the QR code. I will show you what that looks like. So I have that over here. Where's my finder gone? Right. Let's put that down there and open it up. So this is the zip file that you will get. You'll zip that. Oh no, open it. You will have a page numbers file. It literally just has a sample at the bottom. So if you are stuck, you will find it in there. This one has the page X of Y at the bottom. This one has all of the title of the document, etc. I put one together with the running headings. It's got all of the sample text in it and it's set up for you to investigate and use. Although using sections at the top is not a running heading, people tend to call it a running heading. So it's just using sections, but I've put that in as well. The multiple masters one you've seen, so I'll open it and show it to you. Don't do that, come on. It was the one that had this in, so you can actually have a go with it. There's the parent and child masters. I used a different example, but the principle is still the same that I had in here. So this one has got, it has the yellow flash at the top, it has the blue one, it has the red one, and this is where the page numbers are coming from. That has page numbers applied. These have two of them applied. Okay, what else do we have in that magic file? The alternate ones, so you've got those to play with. You can actually put your own images in and have a play around with them. Then I've got the artboards and pages. So this file has an artboard in it. You can't add pages. And this one has pages. You can't add an artboard. And then I've included both of the watermarks so you can test them for yourself. So as I say, you will find that at that URL with that QR code. And bang on time, 2 minutes early actually, we're done. So you will find all that I do at youtube.com/ElaineGiles. We have our ever-growing Affinity with Elaine playlist. That is the QR code. It goes right back to the first session that we did, which was when Affinity by Canva was brand new. Then we did all of those sessions. We followed up with photo books and trifold brochures and scrapbooking. I've noticed the views are higher if I talk about the feature. So working with colour went well, and so did textiles. We also did fun and games, and last time we looked at working with images. People didn't like working with images. I don't know why. I did clearly state it wasn't editing them, but there you go. And today it was mastering master pages. So if you have enjoyed that, found anything useful, please give the video a like. It matters greatly to YouTube. I'd rather you subscribe, but likes are welcome as well. Also, subscribe. You will be the first to hear all details of new sessions. And there's the comments. Now, I know when we're live, there's loads of chat and it's great. But comments are what YouTube like. And you can't leave a comment until after the live stream. But we do send you a link, if you remember, which has a link to the recordings and it provides the timings for all the content. So all you need to do is click any of those times and just leave a comment that says can't wait for the next show. If you've made it this far, we have an icon. And today I've picked the soccer icon. This is because, poor Mike, how long have you been missing now, football? Must be nearly 2 weeks.
Yeah, but there's a game tomorrow night.
But there is a game tomorrow. But they've given us another weekend off. So I thought we'd use the soccer icon just to remind Mike his beloved team are playing again tomorrow on Monday. Right, what are we doing next time? This one, much, much, much requested. Bulleted and numbered lists. I know it has a habit of doing its own thing. But it won't do. You will beat it into submission, trust me. Notice, it's a Saturday. This is because there's a match, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a match on Sunday. So it's Saturday, last day of February, and it's 7 p.m. UK time. Our Australian contingent will be delirious. Because you don't like 3 o'clocks, do you? Because it's 4 o'clock. It's any time where you are. Any time between about 1 to 4. So Saturday next week, don't forget. If you want to get in touch with me, where I hang out, I'm on Blue Sky. I have been known to post on LinkedIn. Sometimes make a random appearance on Facebook, but mainly YouTube. If you want to ask a question or a comment, it's probably best to use the contact form at elainegiles.co.uk, and that will come straight to me. I'm not on the socials that much, let's put it like that. What time have I got to be on the socials? And there's also my newsletter, which you will find at elainegiles.com/VIP. That is where you will get notifications of when I'm going live, what I'm doing. I also ask questions, so I'm definitely going to be asking this week, what do you want to see in bullets and numbered lists? What edge cases have you got that'll tax me? Let me know. I need to know. So what have we got in relation to questions, Mike?
Right, am I live?
Mm-hmm.
Right, first one is Mark says the link doesn't work, but it does. It's probably because it truncates it in the chat. If you right click on it, Mark, and you open in new tab or open in background tab, that should work. If it doesn't, let me know.
You can also go to elainegiles.com/scp-products, and I think it shows the lot, which is a much shorter URL.
True.
Try that.
Right.
He looks like he's got lots of questions because he's all of a fluster.
Yes, there is lots of questions. Somebody says, where's my list of questions gone? Curtis says, a session for people who are moving from Publisher to Affinity would be useful if you want to.
Okay. Add it to the list.
Right.
Add it to the list.
Okay.
What specific questions have you got in relation to that if you are moving? Because they are very, very similar. There are edge cases like the artboards, little gotchas, but they're so similar. What specifics have you got? Let me know.
Right. I will put a shortened link in the chat shortly, but it's definitely working because it's worked for me.
You did make the thing live.
Yes.
You've tried it in an incog window.
As far as I know. I'm gonna try it in an incog window.
Shall I try it? Let me go try it. Right, moving my mouse across. We've had no spelling mistakes or something dodgy like that.
No,
it gets there for me.
Yeah.
Let's have an incog window. Let's do the same thing.
It's working in an incog window for me.
It's definitely working. It is definitely working. So I think it's YouTube trying to stop you getting there. I know the URL's long.
Right. Where's everything gone? Things are scrolling. Right. Questions. From Tracy. I'm not sure if Tracy's still with us. But she says, RE the gotcha early on. I'm assuming one could simply export all the content into a new file with the correct properties tailored to the expected final use.
Yeah, you could do that. You can fix it in the file by taking away the master pages, but it's just something to be aware of. You can obviously copy and paste content between files, no problem at all. And like I said, the artboard and pages situation wasn't anything to do with the size. So a lot of people think, oh, if it's A4, it's probably a publisher file, it's layout. And if it's not, then it'll be a vector file. No, it's nothing to do with the size. So it really depends on how the file was set up. So yeah, you can copy and paste between it, do whatever you need to. Obviously, if it started life as if you've added textiles and things like that in, just copying and pasting them would potentially mess up things like styles. So you'd have more work to do. But yes, it could be done.
Joe Host says, if I have a document like a quick start guide to studios with spreads for printing with left and right free columns, is there an easy way to change it to pages only with a free column on the right, which will be easier to read as PDF on a phone?
Yes, you could do that. You could have different masters set up to do that with. And then just, you'd need to change the, oh no, let me think. Yeah, you would need to change the masters if what you had in the spread had a kind of right and left thing going on. Then you would need to change the master to make that work. But yes, it would work.
Okay, Tracy says, do you have to apply a different master so it just shows 1, 2 as in Roman numerals and not page as well?
If you want to take away the word page, then you would need a different master for that. If you just want it to have the number, and in one section it's Roman numeral, in another it's the ABC, in another it's numeric, then no, you don't. So it's only the content that you've actually typed in that you would need to have a different master for.
Okay.
Another option with that is if it's just one page, you could edit detached and turn off the eyeball next to the word page. You could do that. I'd probably have it separate because I can't see me having one page that I don't want that on. It may be multiple pages I don't want that on, in which case another master is a good idea.
Okay, Solmat Solhat. About sections, so if I wanted to format a book with chapters with images and text, I could use sections to make the chapters separate so they don't get messy if I decide to move images or text.
I wouldn't. I would say sections are more semantic layout of your document, because if you make a section, I mean, you could do, but if you make a section for a chapter, I'm not seeing what the benefit is of that. You could, but what's the benefit? If you notice with mine, it was the content. I only put a new section in when I want something to change, when I want it to physically be a different part of the document. So if you consider that your chapters are sufficiently different that you may want different headers and footers, then make them a section. But if they're not, I'd question, are there any benefits to that? Now, in relation to things moving, you're saying get messy. Let me show you the actual, it is only a work in progress. If you spot any typos, ignore them. Right, where's my document? Where are you? Recent, that one. So this is the live document. This is real. Right, in here, my content is content. So when we come down to here, this is content. So this image, for instance, is in the content. Further on, I talk about the actual studios. You can see we've got Vector Studio here and we've got Pixel Studio. And then we come on to Layout Studio. Now, when you're saying get messy, in here, if I added more text, if I put another paragraph of description or explanation at the top, I need that to move with it. And I've set it up so it does. If I take that away and show you I've also done that. So what this is that we're looking at here, this icon, it's a group. Let's look at the layers. And everything is hanging off the master because this text frame is on the master. So in here, there is a group called Layout Studio. We open that up, there's 3 elements to it. There's the background, and there's the icon on the top of it, and there is the caption underneath. The whole Layout Studio is pinned to that heading up there saying Layout Studio. I didn't limit myself to these icons either. So these are all linked as well. You click on these, they are pinned. Each one is pinned to it. Same with this. Each one of these is pinned to it. But when we get down to this one here, this is pinned to that as well. Because if it moves, Now, you may say, well, look, it's the beginning of a chapter. So chapter 5, unless you put something after this top paragraph, it won't move. No, but the whole of chapter 5 could move if I extend chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is pinned to that. And further on, I think I've got a couple more tables. Here we go. This is chapter 7, I think. And again, this is pinned to where it needs to be. So when you say get messy, if you use the features that you've got available in Affinity in the way that they are intended and with the benefits that they can give you, then you wouldn't have to constantly be going back and trying to tweak things, and it wouldn't get messy. If I move this, if I add 2 more chapters in, this is going to stay with its header, and so is this, because it's pinned. Now, this is where things start to pull together. So when we talk about it, when we're doing our demos, when we're learning and I'm training, today I showed how to make a style, but very, very briefly. I didn't mention once global colours, but obviously the text in here is all global colours. Every feature that we've talked about for the last 4 months is in this file. Global colours, text styles, master pages, nested master pages, parent-child master pages, sections. You can't really do any of this in isolation unless it's just a demo and you're just learning. But you use all of those features together, and I don't think your document would be, or you wouldn't be as concerned about it getting messy. I have no concern with this document that I'm going to come back to it and find things have moved, and now the table isn't in the right place. Because I looked at the content to start with, and I thought to myself, if I do X, then Y will happen, and those tables won't be in the right place. So what happened with me with this was, if we look at this, that's the end of one of them. So this is a snapshot thing. That is linked as well. But that's the end of that chapter. Then we go on to this one, the conclusions and next steps. But this, when I brought the text in, brought it in as one long diatribe. What I did with it was formatted that with a heading 1 and then edited the heading 1 to force it onto a new page. So you do have gaps like this, but nothing gets lost anyway. It doesn't get messy because everything is attached. It's pinned to where it needs to be. You might need the odd tweak where you get like, I've got 2 words on a page of its own and I need to tweak that. But beyond that, it won't get anything like as messy as you think. I promise. Right, what else have we got?
Jamie, so there were some questions put in but were answered during the session. So Jamie, can you export or import master templates for use in other documents?
You can bring them in. What I would say with that is probably easy because there's going to be a knock-on implication of what text was on the master page that you don't have in the receiving document. And the problem is it will bring the text style with it, even if it has the same name, and it will create a new base style, and bad things will happen. So I would say take the time to make the template which contains your master pages first, and then tweak that. So for instance, in here, you'll find me doing this all day, every day. Right, in here, in my templates, that's the template. I right click on it and edit it. And notice down here, it's got an extension of AF template. I'm actually editing the master. I never edit a copy of it if I think that that would have any benefit in the template. I go back to the template. So I actually added, this week I added these. And I updated this. And I need to do that in the template. So master pages, as I explained with the diagram at the end, it's part of a template, but it is worth making sure that the changes happen in here rather than happen in a derivative file that you then try and write back, because things will happen with the styles that you don't particularly want. In here, you'll notice I only have one base style. I have headings, I have step styles, but I don't have multiple base styles and stuff. I keep the styles really, really neat. And changing the file that contains a master page can upset the text styles, which means I've got to then go through and triage them. These styles are set in such a way, like the bold has a shortcut key, and all of these body styles that I have in here have shortcut keys. The headings have shortcut keys, lots of them, both primary and secondary. So that's why it's really important to me that these styles don't get messed up. It's not just what they look like, it's how the whole application works. And I use those shortcut keys in every file. So yes, you can, but you'd have to be very careful of knock-on impacts if you did that. I'm going to close that before I make any changes to it and then live to regret it. There you go.
SFN says, why can't we drag and drop the master page layer? Does it break?
Drag and drop the master page layer. No. What? I'm with you. Right, you mean where I've got, what have I got in here? This one, wasn't it? Let's go to the layers in here and have a look. Right, and I said use the menu. If you drag and drop it, you're impacting one instance of it. If you use the menu, you're impacting all of them. So you can drag and drop this, but it will only apply to this particular page. And what we wanted when we did it was to edit all the pages, even if there was 1,000 of them. So it's best to go into the edit mode, which we did. We went in here and we edited linked, and then use the layers at the top to do that. So it applied to all of them. But if you only want it to apply to one, then you can just drag and drop it. But if I drag and drop that down there, right, let's have a look in here. It's still at the top in the other one. Whereas in this one, it's now at the back. So even though I was editing linked, it really ignored that. So that's why you have to use the menu. But if it's just the one page, then you can do it on just the one page.
Okay. Kate says, I've never seen the blue anchor symbol on my masters or content pages. What does it indicate?
Do you mean, I don't think I've were they on there? Which one had that? Let me have a look. I don't think it was that one. No, I'm not seeing it. Not on a master. Just find out which file it was, and I'll open it and we can have a look. But usually, it's indicating whether there's an anchor point in it. So if I open up that part, there's one. There's one. Right. That is indicating in here that it's an anchor. So that anchor is coming from the header. This is a heading 1, I would suspect. Let me have a look. Yep, it's a heading 1. So it's indicating it's an anchor point. If we open up the anchor panel, you can see in here we've got anchors for about, Elaine, contents, and each one of these headings. It's in alphabetical order for reasons best known to Affinity. But this is indicating to you things that you can link to. So you could put a link somewhere else. Like these, if you exported this page to a PDF, these would link to the anchor points that are listed inside this anchors panel. So it could be that you've just not set it up in a way that the styles are acting as anchor points or destinations. It's a destination that you can put a link to. So if I go to this page, this is probably a bad idea to try live, but let's do it anyway. Right, if I put something in there and say table of contents, right, yet again, Theo, right, so I've selected it. And what I would like to do with that is add a link to it. So insert hyperlink. Where do you want it to go to? I want it to go to an anchor in this document. The anchors that you see in here are the same as the anchors that you see in the anchors panel. So let's say I want this to go to the table of contents, and that's it. I'm done. When that exports to a PDF, that will be a clickable link. It's actually, you could use it now. You could right click on that and go to the hyperlink target, which would be the anchor next to the contents. So that's what it is, what it represents, and how it actually works.
Okay, it says Ori Anchors is for digital files so you can jump around.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Right, last question, unless any more come in. Solmat Solhat. Could you elaborate a bit on version numbering, please? I can't really get my head around it. How to use XYZ numbering properly.
That just depends on what you want. What I do is, let's go look at the version in here, which is at the top, isn't it? So my version there is 1.0.0. It's totally up to you. If you think about how, I remember when Apple were working with Mac OS, and it was 10, and it was 10.1, 10.2. When I started, it was 10.5 Tiger. Then we had 10.6 Leopard, and then 10.7 Snow Leopard. There was ructions when it got to 10.10 because people were saying, oh, it'd be 11 next. You know, it would be version 11. It would not be Mac OS and then X, meaning 10. And they just went to 11. It doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. So you would have some kind of, I would probably update the major version, which is the 1 at the beginning of there. I would update that if I'd made massive changes. So for instance, if I had a book that was, Master and Master Pages in Affinity Publisher, the content would be so similar for Affinity by Canva, but I would make that version 2. If there were then changes that came out that were really tiny, somebody points out a spelling mistake very helpfully, then that would possibly, that might not even warrant it, but I would probably change the last 0 to a 1. If it was something like a new version of the application, but there were very few changes, I just needed to update 2 graphics, I'd probably change the number in the middle. So it's really up to you. The standard that I use for the changes log, which is this one here, this is where you would see that version number. So you can see here, I've added something. It didn't even need to be 1.2, but I did add quite a few pages, so I decided I would do that. But, it really is up to you. You make your own rules as to what changes you consider to be that important that it bumps up to the next number. I've seen change logs that only have like the 1.2, they don't have the end. I've also seen others that are like 1.2, 0.0, 0.3, 0.4a. It obviously means something to them. It's completely up to you. I stick to 3 as it's enough. When I've added the cover with vertical and the numbered placeholders, I might make that 1.2.1. I doubt that would probably go to a 1.2. I made more changes than I actually put in there. It was fixing things. Like something would come through and it was the wrong colour. So if it's just fixes, I do try and make that as detailed as I can because it's handy to go back and look at. But in terms of the numbering, that's completely up to you. Is that it?
That is it.
We don't have any more questions?
No.
Okay. Right, so what you need to be thinking about, ready for next week, is the bulleted and numbered lists. I have had questions on that. The number one problem that people seem to experience is it doesn't look like you want it to look. For which read, the hanging indent isn't right. Let me know in the chat, has that happened to you? Is that the thing? So I will be looking at what it does by default, and then I'll be looking at creating custom bulleted and numbered lists and formatting bulleted and numbered lists, because you can actually do a lot more than is self-evident from the interface. But I know a lot of you have struggled with that. So if you've got something specific, don't hold it to yourself and then say, well, you didn't cover it. Let me know. Let me know in the week. Either leave a comment on the video, but your best way is to go to elainegiles.co.uk and send me a mail via the contact form. And that way I can add it straight to my system and make sure that we cover it. Today's person who did that, we were talking about the cookery book. So hopefully every question that they had was answered. And I'll also reply and make sure that they've seen it. So it is a good idea to mail me via the contact form, because I can put it into my system and make sure that it happens. Okay, if we are done, if that is it for questions, I'll give you a couple more minutes, last call for questions, and then we can head off and I can have some sausage rolls, can't I?
Yeah.
I'm liking the sausage rolls. They're adorable. And I'm thinking, Mike, that we need to add that pie lid that we've got to a pie.
Yeah.
And then I could do a recipe layout that was the pie.
Mm.
Oh, this is fabulous. Although you were let down this week, weren't you, by your grocery delivery?
Yeah.
And needed to put another one in. We have multiple supermarkets on standby ready. And as you pointed out, you only ordered 2 different items, didn't you? Multiple instances, but only of 2 different items. And as Mike pointed out, did they send one or did they have none of one of them?
They sent 1 of the pastry and they sent 7 of the sausage meat when I ordered 10.
Yes, but he ordered 10 of each and he only got 1 of one and 7 of the other. So the poor guy stood at the door with very little in a bag and they had to pay the delivery on that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because you'd have had to pay more for delivery, but there you go. Okay, so that's a little bit of the domestics. Do we have any more questions or is that it?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Just lots of thank yous.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your thank yous. Don't forget, we need to get to 50,000, so tell your friends. It doesn't matter whether they use it or not, just tell them anyway. Don't care what they use, tell them. And then hopefully we'll get there sooner rather than later. Of course, if YouTube would mention my videos to people, we get there a lot sooner. But they don't seem to do that. They're very naughty. Given the garbage that I get suggested to me. I mean, the other day I looked at these videos and I thought, am I logged in? It was that bad. It was like, I'm not interested in this. I'm not. So that's what we need to do. We need lots of comments, lots of likes, and tell lots of people. But with that, I will say a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And we will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.